Yeah, so 500 startups, Marvin Liao, the person who actually makes a great performance like almost every year.
I do my best.
Yeah,
I do my best.
Oh, you definitely do. You definitely do. The audience love you, and we love you too, and it's good to have you back. It's good to have you back.
Honored. I'm
so
honored
welcome
to be
back
here.
to Moscow.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Russia. And you do like, you look around, you travel a lot, naturally, you see different businesses all around the world, but we're going to be a little bit selfish.
Yeah.
So we'll start with Russian startup community in general, since you're coming here regularly for quite a time, almost like, it's your 4th year since the first time you came to Russia, maybe even more.
I mean, I probably come to Russia probably 3 or 4 times a year.
Oh, even that. So do you see some trends in the startup community? Do you see how it changes, how it evolves?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely gotten like much more mature. I'm seeing the quality level of the startup founders get much better. And particularly over the last like 2 or 3 years, I've definitely seen a lot more of like the startup founders where before, they used to just think about like Russia and the CIS region. And you're starting to see sort of the mindset shift where it's like, wait a minute, like we could actually do like, we could be global, right? And so I'm definitely seeing that mindset
which is
shift.
a big
That's
deal
a good
for
thing.
you.
That's a huge thing. And that's interesting for us.
All right, I see. But the mindset is actually the thing that, it's the issue that I would like to talk as well. So there is this, you know, if you read a classical management book, especially I think from the 80s or 90s, when they deal with the success of Japanese businesses, for example.
Sure.
They talk about like different management styles. They have American management style, Eastern management style, maybe some even talk about Scandinavian management, which is like the third thing. Can we talk about it now? Or do we see some kind of a paradigm shift when, since all the information is available, you just choose the best practices and it doesn't matter where you work, you just go by the book?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like, you know, whether you look at Scandinavian, and I've studied all of them. I didn't go to business school, but I've had to read all of them as a manager, right? I mean, there's benefits to Asians, and I say Japanese, much more Japanese, not Chinese or Korean. Those are brutal companies to work at. But there's definitely a lot more sort of like, they're a lot more socialist mindset. But at the same time hierarchical. Yeah, much more collectivist. Versus in the US, much more individualistic. But I think like there's benefits to both. I probably ascribe more to sort of like the US sort of like management style in general.
You just get it as good as it gets.
You're direct, much more independent-minded. I give you a lot of leeway. I think it's probably US Silicon Valley, sort of like I give, you know, I trust that you're an entrepreneur. I provide, my job is to provide the vision and provide sort of like the direction. And it's your job to execute. I don't care, you know, like at the end of the day, I don't really care what you do.
I don't care how you do it, but as long as you do it,
get it done, right? Like
good.
I give, like, you know, giving people autonomy to, micromanagement just doesn't work, right? Like if you're gonna micromanage, like what's the point of having people? And so I definitely ascribe to that, like, and I think like the US management style, I think if there's a reason why like US sort of Western Anglo sort of like style, like there's a reason most of the dominant companies in the world are like
managed this way,
right? And now it's even the best Chinese companies like Alibaba. Okay, not Tencent. Tencent is like very down, but like a lot of the best companies are managed this way.
But do you see that Russian entrepreneurs, they kind of tend towards American style of management, or vice versa, or it's hard to tell? Like, how does it work on this market?
This is why I love the tech industry in general, right? Like the startup industry, where there's a lot more similarities. Like when I go to an office, like a Russian startup's office, or like IIDF, my friends at Free, right? Like go to their office, it's just like you're in Silicon Valley. Right? Like, you know, their mentality.
So you don't travel anymore. You just move from one office to another.
I feel like I go to, like any country I go to, whether it's in the, you know, the Arabic countries and Latin America, like whether you're a VC or whether you're a startup, like the culture is very similar. Right, it's very similar, and so like I feel like I have a lot more in common with many of my like Russian startup friends than I do with actually like sometimes my neighbors in San Francisco.
All right, now let's talk a bit more. There were like tons of questions about like selfish and personal questions from the founders. So let's move to them. If I have a startup, what should I do to get to 500 startups? How do I get to you guys? And how do I benefit from getting there?
Well, great question. So number one, I think, you know, always being introduced to me is always the best way, right? Being introduced to me by like any VC, like being introduced to me by people I trust, or portfolio companies I've invested in. Like I've invested in probably about 6 or 7 Russian startups in the last like 2 years.
All right.
And so, and I'm coming here on a regular basis. I'm friends with many people here in the local Russian startup scene. So if I get like a introduction from somebody that I know, like I'm going to take the meeting, and I'm going to be much more open-minded versus if you spam me by email or ping me on Facebook, and I'm like, I don't even know who you are.
This guy's following me around, and it seems that he's after my money.
So that's always really good.
Okay.
And then, what I look for ultimately is like, is this like an awesome founder working on a business that potentially could be global or solving a big problem here in Russia, right? Or in the region.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it has to be like an interesting problem.
Okay.
And then last of all, sort of like where and how do you compare versus like all the, like I get 3,000 applications like every single batch that I run, right? I meet.
So how many applications on average do you get a year?
12,000.
12,000.
Yeah, so we have a lot of. I have to look through a lot of companies.
Stress.
Yeah,
Totally.
And that's just accelerator. Like if you think about how many introductions I get just from looking at seed deals, I probably look at any between 10 to 30 companies a week, right?
Okay.
Like you're just like meeting companies, and so the bar is very high.
Okay.
And so where we can help them, I think. If they come through our accelerator program, we're very, very helpful when it comes to helping them figure out like customer acquisition. That's our forte. Like we've invested in, like I have 11 full-time, part-time people who all their job is to basically like help them like figure out customer acquisition. These are sales and marketing experts. I have another 11 full-time, part-time ex-founders who are helpful. Like their job is to basically take care of the company. So we help them on finding customers, help them on telling their story. Really important in this region, right?
Because story is something that captures people somehow. Like
critical.
You cannot throw unchewed piece of technology into people's hands. I mean, like in the 80s, people thought that as long as we get there, we get something that works. People would just grab and run around with it.
We know that's not true, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how many times have you thought about this where like I go, wow, this technology is really good, but their sales and marketing sucks.
Exactly.
Where if you look at many of the dominant technology companies, let's be honest, right? Like Microsoft during the heyday, they were not a great product. They were a sales and marketing machine, right? Like many of the products, like dominant companies like Oracle, when you go down the list, like they're not great products.
It starts to feel kind of hygienic. It becomes it kind of transfers to this commodity aspect of the product that you have to have a story behind your product.
Story is important. Stories like that's the background of every marketer, right? If you think about like what is good marketing, it's like it tells a great story.
Yeah. I wanted to now let's just reframe your mindset a bit. Now, let's imagine that you are a founder.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to imagine, but maybe you're just out of your college.
That's a tough job.
You're a sophomore. You're a sophomore, and but you obviously have a lot of potential. You feel ambitious, so you want to be a CEO of your own small company. In which sector would you found?
I think it'd either be in the agriculture technology area.
Agriculture.
Yeah, or like synthetic bio, like biotech.
Oh, right.
I think like those are going to be, number one, everyone needs to eat, right? The number of people are growing in general still on this world, but the food, like we've tapped out on sort of like food. So I think like ag tech is going to be really important of how do we actually get more out of like the soil that we actually have. It would be something like that, or I think synthetic bio or biotech. From a digital health perspective, from just like how do I live a little bit longer, how do I be in better health in general, and how do we create sort of like new, better things, right, for people.
So this is actually a surprising answer for me. So let's get a bit deeper into that. So ag tech, it's like agricultural technology, and the biotech, they are kind of go together, right?
They're similar. They
some
go together.
Of the technologies are transferable in some way. And I think it was Steve Jobs who said that the 21st century will be the century of biotech, while the 20th.
Right.
Yeah,
he's right.
Yeah. So you feel that this is the biggest challenge now. So we should like refocus and readjust and make something more organic, right?
Yeah.
But people, today we mostly talk about AI, right? Yeah. So. Do you believe that, for example, in the area of AI, you would have some connection between the bio?
Totally, absolutely, right? Like why I'm super bullish on sort of like why sort of like biotech in general is that I would say there's sort of a corresponding sort of group of trends, right? The power of storage has actually gone down. Computing power has gone up, right? Capabilities, AI, being able to process and analyze a lot of this data now. So for example, like sequencing the genome, right? Like that was next to impossible like 20 years ago. And now, with all this computing power, there's a lot of things we can do of just like providing sort of precision, like medicine, and so, or providing specific.
We actually have right below us on the first floor. There are these guys from Atlas. This is Russian company that do sequencing of genome, and I'm at the moment passing the genome test. I started it today in the morning.
That's the future. That's the future.
It's over here.
Yeah, it's here, right?
Right now.
It's here. And so I'm very bullish, where I think that there's going to be like trillions of dollars, right? Because people care about your health, whether it's in helping to figure out better pharmaceutical products or like nanites, you know, like nanotechnology. Like we all care about like our health. I'm old now, right? I'm like 43, so I think about like, wow, like my metabolism's definitely slowing down. I used to be able to go drinking all night and then like not sleep and be able to basically be okay and work. Can't do that anymore, right? So I definitely think like we're entering this romantic
very
world.
interesting application of biotech,
right?
I didn't
like,
think about that.
I'm selfish.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Well, that's interesting. Another thing, you've been talking about this acceleration of computing power, and there is this amazing project like Google, the Brain Project, the European Brain Project, and
there's so many of these projects.
They just try to reconstruct the brain literally like piece by piece through the computing power, and I feel that's so
amazing. Right?
Exactly.
Like, I mean,
like, what would be its first word? What's your bet? As long as we get a fully functional reconstruction of human brain, we probably get it.
I think
would
it's scary, though. I worry. I think it's kind of scary, right? Like, you know, it's interesting. I fluctuate between sort of being like hyper optimistic about sort of like the world that we're moving into of AI and being really scared at the same time, where it's like, wow, like these things are going to be, this technology is going to do stuff better than humans. But maybe that will allow us to move into a world that's going to to be more like Star Trek, right?
And maybe it's going to allow us to be better ourselves.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Right, I hope so.
Yeah.
And because I think like everything I'm doing right now, where I'm investing in the future, right? Like I hope what I'm doing actually has like good results, like for me, my, you know, like basically all the people that are coming behind us,
around
right?
you. You basically you expect that. Yeah. All right, so maybe we start to wrap it up, but I think that we'll deliberately always invite a lot of students for this conference, and we've been talking with Andrei in the beginning of the online that this is one of the factors that actually improves the chances of the person to get here. So if you mentor a lot of people.
I mentor a lot of people, yeah.
So if you mentor like really, really young, just starting out tech, or not even maybe too techy people, but the people who want to be part of this digitalization of this biotech future, whatever, which would be like three basic things that like, if you have these three commodities, you're good to go. Like look at these three things.
That's a great question, right? I think there's a couple things. Number one, be a learning machine. Like, you know that your education doesn't end sort of with like when you finish college, right? Like you should be learning. Like there's all these amazing resources online now, right? Like Udemy, like Coursera. Like there's just so many, like edX. Like there's tons of programs.
It blew up like
Live.
I think 4 years ago.
Yeah, and so there's so much stuff you can learn on whatever you want to learn. Right, I still take a lot of classes, right? Like I'm taking a biotech class with my MITs. It's interesting. Like really learn to fall in love with like learning. That's number one.
Okay, so fall in love with learning. Yeah, learn as much as you can, everywhere you can, and so on.
Number two, like, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Like, try out a lot of different jobs and occupations, because you actually don't know what you're going to really click on, and don't be afraid that...
This is an interesting aspect. So do you believe that actually AI or any other kind of technology would help us kind of make our careers in a more sensible way? Because I love this talk by Ken Robinson about this education death valley. I'm sure you saw that, and it's a very great talk. And he talks there that, you know, guys, we think of our career as of a linear story of our perfect success. Sure. Every job interview is like, I worked all my life to get this job. But it's definitely different, and it looks more like a decision tree. So do you feel that we can get some insights technologically here? Would it help us organize our careers?
I think it's a valuable tool, but I always think like, the world that we're entering now is so dynamic, and so there's an aspect where you need to plan, right? Like you need to do some level of planning, but you don't want to over-plan either because like you just never know. Like I actually think for a lot of young folks now, like the job they're going to have 20 years from now is going to be like I don't even think will exist, right? Like you just won't know.
No, that's why I'm not asking this question. I'm trying to be more generalistic in a sense, like what is the good in terms of like personal development, which areas are good to invest from the personal perspective, like so choosing a lot of like not being afraid to choose different paths, learning a lot. Do you have the third?
That and just like learning about by choosing a lot of different paths, you get to learn like get a little bit more sort of like self-awareness and find a mentor who can actually like really tell you the truth to sort of like really understand sort of what really drives you, right? And so for some people, when you're young, you think about like, oh, I just want to make money and have prestige and work at this really awesome company, where actually now, like I'm 43, where I've actually learned where it's actually not about money. Like I think if you work on something you really care a lot about and you become a craftsman in that area, the money will follow.
It just comes
and it's really important actually working just with good, smart people that push you. And so this idea of just like, you are the average, like, and many people in Silicon Valley talk about this where like you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Really be selective about who you spend your time with. And I'm very, very lucky, right? I work with awesome people in my firm, like I respect a lot. And so like every day it's like,
learn from them.
I learn from them, they push me, but also just like I have fun. Like every day is like I don't have like the Sunday night blues, right? Where it's just like, oh man, I got to go to work tomorrow. For me, I'm like, I get to go to work tomorrow. I get to sort of like interact.
It's Monday, baby.
Yeah, it's awesome. Right. And I think it's really sad that a lot of people don't have that. So I just count myself very lucky, and I hope most people can find that, because you need more of that in the world, right?
That was Marvin Liao. Thanks a lot, Marvin.
No, thank you, man. It's always a pleasure
to have
you.
Learn a lot. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and pay attention to the people you hang out with. Learn from them. Thank you very much, Marvin.
Thank you.
And we move